In this lesson, we'll learn how we can create multiple artboards inside one Illustrator document. Alright, so up until now we've pretty much been calling this area in the center of our document the document window. Well, in fact, there's actually two different areas we should probably go over inside this document window because we're going to be talking about them quite a bit in upcoming lessons. So this area in the very center of our window here, this white box that's about the size of a piece of paper, is actually called an artboard. This is going to be the main printable area within our document. Now, there's also this area outside our artboard, these gray areas. Now, let me just go ahead and zoom out and just give you an idea how vast that area is. You can see here that's very, very large. This is actually called our scratch area. Now, we can actually create artwork either in the scratch area or on the artboard. What you just need to understand is that in order for that to be printable artwork, in order for it to print, it needs to be living somewhere on our artboard here. Now, Illustrator actually has the ability to create multiple artboards of varying sizes inside one document. Now, this is actually a pretty large addition to Illustrator that came in back in Illustrator CS4, but in Illustrator 5 they've actually improved on this feature some. Now, you may be wondering, why would I ever need to include multiple artboards in one document? And the answer is that it's going to allow you to group several different pieces of artwork that may be related to the same project or the same client into one Illustrator file. Now, initially this may sound like the ability to add multiple pages to your Illustrator file. Well, in fact, it's actually so much more than just that. While we can go ahead and export an artboard or a document with multiple artboards to a multi-page PDF, really to call them pages would be to shortchange them a bit. Now, really you can use artboards inside Illustrator for so much more than just pages, based on the desired output for your file. Maybe you're working on a website and some web-based promotional materials, maybe some banners and things like that. So really, to call an artboard a page is really not to give it its due credit. So let me go ahead and just show you how you would go ahead and create multiple artboards inside this existing document. Now, let's say we're creating a document that's going to house a stationery package, being a piece of letterhead, a couple business cards, and maybe an envelope. So I'm going to come over here to my tool panel and grab the artboard tool. It's Shift-O on your keyboard if you want to use the keyboard shortcut, but it lives right here in your tool panel. Now notice as I click on that tool, there's some visible changes within our document window. We actually have the area around the artboard grayed out. We have a little dashed line around our artboard, and we've got some transform controls. We've also got some crop marks at the corners, and we've got a label up here in the top left hand corner. Let's start with this label. Each artboard is going to receive a number, and this is actually the order of the artboards. So artboard number 1 here receives the number 01. Now, a new feature with artboards is the ability to rename each individual artboard. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to come up to my control panel here, and let's just change the name of this artboard, and let's call this one letterhead. And you can see here, after I hit enter, the tag on the top left corner of this artboard actually changes to reflect that new name. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can access the artboard options for this document. We can come up here and either click on this little button right here, or we can actually double click on our artboard tool in the tool panel. Let me just go ahead and bring that up for you. I know there's a lot of options in the control panel we haven't talked about yet, but a lot of these options are actually duplicated within the artboard options dialog, and we'll go ahead and talk about this dialog first. Alright, so starting at the top here, you see here we have again the artboard name, and we've already changed that to letterhead. We have a preset option here, and if we drop that down, there's quite a few presets. They're grouped by sort of by file type or maybe project type here. You can see all the default pieces of paper or paper sizes right here. Let's go ahead and stay on letter. You can see here we have width and height adjustments. We also have a constrain proportions checkbox. Now, if we go ahead and check that, we can actually make changes to one of these options, and it proportionally will change the other. You can see that that's checked visually by that little chain link right there. I don't want to go ahead and do that for right now, so let me uncheck that. Now over to the right, you see here we have our orientation buttons again, one for portrait and one for landscape. And moving down, we have a position area. Now this little icon on the far left is the icon you would use to set your reference point. And we also have some X and Y coordinates here. Now we're not going to get too much into reference points just yet, but just know that the reference point for your object or your artboard in this case has to do with transformations you make to that artboard size or that object size. So we'll talk about that more in just a little while when we talk about transforming objects, but let's go ahead and continue on here. Now you see here some display options. We can add center marks, crosshairs, or video safe areas to our artboard, as well as change the pixel aspect ratio of the video ruler if we're working with a video document. Now down here below you see some global options, and the first one is to fade the region outside the artboard, and you can see here we've got that checked, so we've got this nice gray area. Now the update while dragging option here just pertains to how the area around our artboard is rendered as we resize the artboard. So also notice here there's a delete button. It's grayed out right now, and I'll go ahead and click OK here. The reason that's grayed out is because we only have one artboard inside our document, and we can't delete our only artboard. Let's go ahead and add in another artboard at this point and look at a couple different ways we can do that. Now the first way is we can click on this new artboard button right here in our control panel. If we click on that, notice that my cursor gets loaded up here with a transparent version of the first artboard. So it's going to basically take the dimensions of our first artboard and copy that and allow us to create a second one in the same size. So let me just click right here and I'll place them right next to each other. Now I mentioned earlier that we're creating a stationary package, so maybe we want this to be the business card. So we need to adjust the size of this artboard. Now we can do that a couple of different ways. We can actually grab one of these corner controls and transform this here just by clicking and dragging. But I need a specific size, so I'm going to go back into my artboard options with this artboard selected. And let's go ahead and actually rename this one. Let's call this one Business Card Front. And I'm going to come down here and specify a width of 3.5 inches and a height of 2 inches. And let's hit OK. You see here our artboard gets resized right there to the right of our original artboard. Let me just drag that into position here. Now we can actually also make a copy of this artboard if we want to say do a back for our business card. I want to go ahead and just hold down my Alt key while I mouse over this artboard. And you can see here we get that little double arrow. Now while holding down Alt, we can just click and drag and pull to the side here, and we're going to make a copy of that second artboard. Notice here that this is our third artboard and it says copy here. So let me just go ahead and rename this one to Business Card Back. Alright, so a second way to actually create a new artboard here within our document is to actually just draw it in place. Now notice my cursor is loaded with a little crosshair and a little square in the corner. We can actually just click and drag anywhere in the area around our artboards or even on top of our artboards and draw in a new artboard. Now again, I need a specific size for this envelope here, so I'm just going to draw one approximately the right size, and I'm going to come up here and go into my artboard options, and let's go ahead and specify a size for that of 9.5 inches wide and let's say 4.125, which is 4 1/8 inches tall. We'll go ahead and click OK and name this one Envelope. Alright, great. Now, keep in mind we're inside Artboard Edit mode, so we're pretty much limited to managing our artboards right now. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can actually edit our Artboard Edit mode, but let me go ahead and show you how to delete artboards before we do that. Let's go ahead and we can do that either by clicking on this little trash can icon right here, and we can delete an artboard we have selected. Or we can actually just hit our backspace key. And again, that artboard gets deleted. Now to exit artboard mode, all we need to do is either hit escape on our keyboard or just choose another tool from our tool panel over here on the left. So let me just go ahead and choose our selection tool here, and you can see we've bounced right back out of artboard mode and we're ready to draw. So notice down here in our status bar we also have an artboard designation. Now if I drop this down, and let me just resize this window so you can see this, we can actually focus in on any of our 4 artboards just by dropping this down and clicking on that artboard. We can also cycle through them by using these controls to the right or to the left. Alright, so let me just resize this window now. And we've added artboards to our document, our existing document. Now, if we decide we wanted multiple artboards when we're first creating our document, let me just go ahead and do that here with a Control-N. I'll bring up our new document dialog. We can actually specify the number of artboards for our document right here in this dialog. So let's say we want 3 artboards for this document. Now notice here some other options become available to us. We can specify the amount of space between each artboard, and there's a column adjustment right here. Now this column adjustment is only available for these first 2 options right here. These are grid-based arrangement options. Now we can arrange in a grid based on rows or a grid based on columns here. Or we can just arrange our artboards in a single row or single column with these 2 buttons. Now, notice that each of these buttons also has a little arrow that's drawn through the little boxes in it. That indicates the direction of our artboards. We can actually reverse that direction by clicking this little arrow right here. So let's just say we want all of our artboards in a single row. Let's go ahead and click OK. And you can see that we've generated a document with 3 artboards, all based on our default file size, being 8.5 by 11 inches. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, so in this lesson we have looked at a couple different ways that we can create artboards both in an existing document and in a new document. In the next lesson we're going to pick up where we're leaving off here and talk about a new panel in Illustrator for managing artboards.